It's the 6th week of work on the roof, and with the focus now on the top layer of tiles, the end is just about in sight. But there are about 1,000 tiles which we now need to place by hand with mortar, most of which we need to lift onto the roof first. And we also need to get the new gutter in place above the rebuilt cornice. So there's a lot of work to be done, and with the temperatures rising here like they are across most of Europe, it looks like it's going to be a challenging week of work. And to help meet the challenges of the increasing heat, on Monday morning I decided it was time for the shorts to come out. And after opening, I was joined by the first 3 of the team. As we got ready for the first big lift up of tiles. Some of the old ones we had stored below, and a batch of new ones that Haggy arrived with shortly afterwards. Throughout this phase of work, we've tried to balance having a good number of tiles spread out above, while having enough room to move around. Something that the untrimmed insulation foam might not have helped much. With enough new tiles up above to get started, we unloaded the second pallet down below for lifting up later in the week. And the team got started with the first couple of lines before the mid-morning break. We had hoped for the new gutters to be installed last week, but they were now due the next day. So while the team worked on the tiles, I worked on removing the old mortar from the cornice at the front, which we figured would be easier to do before the gutter was in place. For the cornice cleaning, I used similar steps to those I used when I cleaned the back and side cornices last year. First, chipping off the bigger pieces with a power chisel or by hand, and then later clearing smaller pieces with a grinder and a metal brush. The delay in the gutter was going to create some extra work for the team because they would not be able to fix the final tiles at the bottom of each line until the gutter was in place. So they first needed to put in temporary props, and then later they would need to fix them all with mortar. To avoid covering the team with dust from the grinder brush, I stopped the cornice cleaning at one end and moved on to taking out the final remains of the old ceramic drain so that I can fill in this section in the coming days. In the afternoon, I tried to film the process that the team were following, from the way they checked the lines, laid the under tiles, propped them, and then added mortar delivered by Alu. And inspired by some comments to the last video, Miguel would shortly be giving an impromptu explanation of the mortar technique and the 3 different options that different builders used.
En Udo hay 3 clases para ponerte. Mira, estas dos.
First, an option with the least mortar involved.
Una.
Second, an option for having some mortar at the sides.
Dos. La tercera es la mejor que hay.
And their third, preferred option, which is for 5 dollops of mortar that essentially holds and seals the entire tile edge.
Vale.
After the explanation, the team worked through the last remaining mortar with a couple more lines, while Sam tidied up below. Day 2 was another hot morning with strong sun and high temperatures forecast, which meant sun cream and hats were essential for the day. The focus for which, at the start of the day, would be the installation of the new gutters. And after some initial prep work, the gutter man Geordie was soon on site. These gutters are aluminium, though they still have their plastic covers on, and the lip rests on the cornice, while a series of metal arms are fixed to the tiles and mortar below.
Venga, Miguel, cap aquí.
To ensure the rainwater flows appropriately, the cornices have about a 5 centimetre rise from one end to the other. And with the second gutter quickly in place, Haggy and Miguel worked on adding tiles and mortar above the gutter arms, especially at the lower end. And they would soon need to be adding some pieces under some of the last tiles and lines that would be helping create air and water holes through the mortar that would be sealing the end of the tiles. And I had to draw some pictures to confirm what we agreed for this, and then create some of the tube pieces that would enable the solution. With a half tube with a gauze cover for the water channels every 4 or 5 tile lines, and a full circle tube with a gauze cover for the air holes every 8 or 9 lines. The mid-morning break provided a very welcome rest from the sun in the shade of the tree or the shade at the back. After the break, the focus was on the end tiles for the lines already placed. And I will be making more tubes for the end tiles further along the edge. And then this was a quick check that the end tiles were lined up appropriately.
Esta, segundo.
Este.
No, aquí. Este. Es claro, es un poco más afuera.
There have been plenty of wasps on the roof across this phase, especially when there has been fresh mortar being used, and I had been telling the team about electric swatting rackets. Earlier in the day I had given a successful demonstration, but my efforts to film it in action later in the day were less successful.
Más o menos. Mejor.
¿Está sabe o no?
On Wednesday, the team had been due to arrive a little bit later than usual, but they were already at work when I arrived at the time they had estimated. And once up above to check on progress, I had a special delivery of racket swatters that had been requested after the demonstration the day before. My plan for the morning was to stay out of the sun, and to start with, that involved clearing some final old plaster, which I had held off doing until after the team's work on this wall at the start of this phase of roof work. Apart from some camera admin and water duties, the rest of the day was about tile laying and moving the old tiles stacked at one end to where Haggy and Miguel needed them. While I've got the bicycle hat on top, I thought I would answer a couple of the questions or comments from the last video about why I was wearing it. And the main reason is that this strap helps keep it in place a lot better than the construction hat that I was wearing. The other reason is that I like to keep this cap to hand, and it fits quite nicely under here, so I don't have to keep putting the cap down and then looking for it. And then the third reason is actually that I think at this stage of the roof work, the biggest risk is probably a fall rather than anything falling on my head. And I figured that if this helmet is good enough for protecting my head if I fall off my bike at 40 miles an hour going downhill, that it should be good enough for any fall from any part of the roof. So that's the reason why I'm wearing it, even if it does look a bit silly.
Ahí dentro. Por la mañana.
Thursday was due to be the hottest day so far, and the cooler box was back on site for the team's drinks. And the priority for the morning was to lift up the remaining tiles that would be needed above, using the crane on the truck that Haggy would be arriving in shortly with some more lime for the mortar. Up above, I made a quick estimate of the tiles already there and how many more would be needed, and cleared some space for the tiles being lifted up. Well, after getting all the tiles ready for lifting up, we've now got a problem with the crane on the truck, as it doesn't seem to be working very well. So we need a different option for lifting 600 tiles up to the roof. Thankfully, the crane was soon working better, and the long lifting session could start.
Muy bien.
By late morning, the necessary tiles were up, and the shade of the tree was even more welcome than usual. For the rest of the day, the team would be braving the heat above, and I was grateful that I would only be up there for the occasional progress check and that I could stay inside and catch up on some admin. With the team approaching the end of the front side and running out of room to stand, they were now laying the last 2 lines at the same time. And as they were about to start on the back side of the house, some more air and water tubes were now needed.
Well, it's Friday morning and I'm arriving about 3 hours later than I normally would, as I'm not feeling great. Got a bit of a stomach bug and I'm feeling a bit washed out, and I wasn't sure I was going to get in at all, but I wanted to make sure that the guys were all right and doing okay. It is a bit cooler today, but I suspect that I'm not going to be doing much work and not much filming, and I might be inside, maybe catching up on some sleep.
And apart from a couple of checks up above with the drone, this is pretty much where I stayed for the whole day until the last hour.
And that, thankfully, is the end of a seriously warm week of work, during which we have lifted up hundreds of tiles, both old and new, and Sam and Alu have delivered an enormous amount of mortar up to Haggy and Miguel, who have placed by hand all of the tiles, as well as adjusting some of them above the new gutters. And they have kept at it despite the roasting conditions that have totally wilted me today. And hopefully, with a couple more days' work, we should have all of the tiles in place. So please do tune in again next week to see how the finished roof will look.